Good morning and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Today is July 14th, 2026. We are here today in the hearing room of the Administrative Services Building for Larimer County. This is the Board of County Commissioners of Larimer County Administrative Matters meeting. I call this meeting to order and as our tradition and how we start our meetings is with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me as you're able. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for joining me for the Pledge of Allegiance. And again, welcome. We are glad you have joined us today. I am Chair Larimer County Commissioner Jody Shai McNally, and I welcome you again to this meeting. We're glad you are here. I am joined by Commissioner Kristen Stevens and Commissioner John Gonzalez at the dais. We're also joined by our clerk and recorder, who is a clerk to the board and taking diligent notes and recording for us, is Deidre O'Neill. Good morning, Deidre. Thank you for being here. We also are joined by our county manager, Lorenda Volker. Good morning, Lorenda. Great to have you. We also have Tom Clayton from our Public Information Office. Tom, good morning. Welcome. Thank you. And then Sarah Martin from our Commissioner's Office, who does all kinds of wonderful things to help us rolling and keep these meetings rolling as well. And she'll be reading our schedule here in a little bit. So now we're going to open up for public comment. I don't see anyone signed up, so I'll just offer anyone in the room, if they're interested in doing public comment, you may raise your hand and do so at this time. All right. Sarah, is there anyone online?
No, Commissioner.
Great. Well, we hope people will join us for public comment. They're always welcome. This is a great time to engage with us. And at this point, I will close public comment and we'll move on to approval of the minutes. Commissioners, do you have any items you wish to adjust for the minutes? If not, then ask Commissioner Stevens to please read the motion to approve the minutes.
Yes, Madam Chair. I move to approve the minutes for the week of July 6, 2026.
Thank you for that motion. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
That passes 3-0. Now we'll move on to the upcoming schedule review. Sarah, would you mind proceeding with the schedule review? Thank you.
This is the Commissioner's schedule for July 20th through the 25th, 2026. On Monday, July 20th from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., Commissioner Stevens will attend the National Association of Counties Annual Conference and Exposition in New Orleans, Louisiana. On Tuesday, July 21st from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., there will be an Administrative Matters meeting in the hearing room on the first floor. From 12 p.m. to 1:30 p.m., Commissioner Gonzalez will attend the Community Corrections Advisory Board meeting at 2307 Midpoint Drive in Fort Collins. From 1:30 p.m. to 3 p.m., there will be administrative direction to county management in the Sprague Lake Conference Room on the second floor. From 3:30 p.m. to 5 p.m., Commissioner Shattuck McNally will attend the Rodeo Board meeting. It's a hybrid meeting. In person, it will be at the McKee 4-H Youth and Community Building at 2580 Arena Circle in Loveland or virtually via Zoom. From 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m., Commissioner Gonzalez will present at the Be the Neighbor Housing Justice event at the Heart of the Rockies Christian Church at 6501 Brittany Street in Fort Collins. On Wednesday, July 22nd from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m., Commissioner Shattuck McNally may attend the North Fort Collins Business Association meeting at the Rocky Mountain Innisphere at 320 East Vine Drive in Fort Collins. From 7:45 a.m. to 9 a.m., Commissioner Gonzalez will attend the City of Fort Collins Larimer County Poudre School District Liaison meeting at City Hall at 300 LaPorte Avenue in Fort Collins. From 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., there will be a liquor license hearing for River Song Inc. in the Commissioner's Conference Room on the second floor. From 12 p.m. to 1 p.m., there will be a Commissioner Casual Conversation in the Sprague Lake Conference Room on the second floor. From 1:30 p.m. to 3 p.m., there will be a work session for a quarterly update on the strategic plan in the Commissioner's Conference Room on the second floor. From 3 p.m. to 4 p.m., Commissioner Gonzalez will attend the Combat Recovery Foundation presentation in the Lake Lily Conference Room on the fifth floor. From 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., Commissioner Shattuck McNally will attend the Community Advisory Board meeting. It's a hybrid meeting. In person, it will be at the Larimer County Loveland campus at 200 Peridot Avenue in Loveland or virtually via Zoom. From 6:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m., Commissioner Stevens may attend the Fair Board meeting. It's a hybrid meeting. In person, it will be in the McKee 4-H Youth and Community Building or virtually via Zoom. On Thursday, July 23rd from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m., Commissioner Shattuck McNally will attend the Larimer County / Thompson School District / Town of Berthoud / City of Loveland Liaison Meeting at the Pulliam Community Building at 545 Cleveland Avenue in Loveland. From 12 p.m. to 1:30 p.m., Commissioner Cafalas will host a community conversation for the Red Feather Lakes community regarding the Choose Larimer's Future campaign, updates from the United States Forest Service on fire restrictions, wildfire mitigation, recreational shooting in the Black Diamond Project, and emergency preparedness guidance from the Red Cross, and this will be at 58 Firehouse Lane in Red Feather Lakes. From 2 p.m. to 3:30 p.m., Commissioner Shattuck McNally will attend the Regional Opioid Abatement Council meeting. It's a hybrid meeting. In person, it will be at the Behavioral Health Services Building at 2260 West Trilby Road in Fort Collins, or virtually via Zoom. From 3 p.m. to 4:30 p.m., Commissioner Stevens may participate in the Virtual Non-Attainment Area Air Pollution Mitigation Enterprise Board meeting. From 4:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m., Commissioner Stevens may attend the Fort Collins Urban Renewal Authority Board meeting. It's a hybrid meeting. In person, it will be at 300 LaPorte Avenue in Fort Collins, or virtually via Zoom. From 5 p.m. to 7 p.m., Commissioner Shattuck McNally may attend the Natural Resources Advisory Board meeting. It's a hybrid meeting. In person, it will be at the Horsetooth Area Information Center at 4200 West County Road 38E in Fort Collins, or virtually via Zoom. On Friday, July 24th from 8:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m., Commissioner Shattuck McNally will participate in the virtual Forest Health Council Legislative Committee meeting. From 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., Commissioner Stevens may participate in the virtual Middle Income Housing Authority Board meeting. From 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., Commissioners may participate in the virtual Colorado Counties, Inc. Proposed Issues meeting. From 12 p.m. to 1 p.m., Commissioner Stevens may participate in the virtual Colorado Counties, Inc. Human Services Office Hours meeting. On Saturday, July 25th, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., Commissioners Cafalas and Shattuck McNally may attend the Larimer County Farmers Market Soil Health Celebration at 200 West Oak Street in Fort Collins. And from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., Commissioners may participate in the Larimer County Fair and Rodeo Parade, downtown Loveland.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate all of that. So we'll start to see if the other commissioners have any additions, deletes, or questions. So we'll start with Commissioner Cafalas. Do you have any additions, sir, or changes?
Yes, I do, actually, and just want to say good morning and welcome to everyone. On Tuesday, July 21st, I will be attending the Disability Pride Month reception and proclamation at City Hall, Fort Collins City Hall, I believe it's from 4 to 5:30. And also, I haven't discussed this with Commissioner Stevens, but regarding the Friday Human Services Hours meeting, I'm more than happy to help with that. I listened to the last one, and it does tie in very much with efforts around the implementation working group. But you and I can discuss that if that's helpful, or we could perhaps tag team it a bit. That's all. Thank you. So maybe you could add me as a May to that one. But totally up to the commission.
Commissioner Stevens.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. The one thing that I have is we have an emergency meeting of the Works Allocation Committee on Wednesday, July 22nd. I mean, it does conflict with the liquor license hearing, so I guess we can talk about that. But that's for getting TANF, Temporary Assistance to Needy Families, dollars out to people who've been affected by the wildfires in southern Colorado. So would like to attend that if possible. And that's all for me. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Sarah, I want to just add the tour of the Avenues Recovery Center on Monday. I think it's Monday the 20th. I just want to kind of make note of that. It's at the Recovery Center, and it's a tour with the facility, and that is in Fort Collins at Avenues Recovery. And I can get you the address later. And so I wanted to note that. And then also I'm attending, just in case there's others, but I'm attending with the USDA and others, the Forest Trends Zoom at 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock on Monday. And so there'll be lots of folks there, and I just want to make sure that's noted just in case others join. So that's really the only changes that I have, other than to note that probably just for your, we'll probably I'll probably be at the parade early before 9 a.m. and then I'll probably be there at 8:30 on, and then I'll probably go up to the soil health at the end, towards the end. So, just so public knows, I won't be at both things at the same time. I'll probably do the parade early and first and then head up here. So I want to just make note of that. Okay. I think that's all we have, so we'll move on now. Thank you, Sarah, very much. To our consent agenda, which is the consent agenda consists of items of no perceived controversy and routine administrative actions such as abatements, agreements, deeds, final plats, liquor licenses, resolutions, and other matters previously reviewed by the Board of County Commissioners. Staff recommends approval of the consent agenda, and a commissioner may request that an item be pulled off the agenda and considered separately, and these items that are pulled from the agenda will be considered after the board takes action on the remainder of the consent agenda. You can go as members of the public or those interested to the website, Board of County Commissioners website, where all of our agendas and our meeting minutes and emails and videos, all kinds of things are there. And you can read more details about this consent agenda. I'm going to read through it at a very high level. So first, we're going to start with this consent agenda for Tuesday, July 14th, 2026. We are starting with agreements. The first is an agreement is an amendment in the development agreement for the Kidder subdivision, file number 10-S2944. This was submitted by the Community Development Department, and this is amendment between the Board of County Commissioners and those named. There's several folks named in that, and this is an amendment to the agreement to allow property owners the option to connect to a public water district system in lieu of constructing and utilizing a shared domestic well. And then there's a professional service agreements, P22-01 inmate medical services. And this is agreement for medical pharmacy services for inmates at the jail through the end of 2027. And this is between the Board of County Commissioners and Core Health LLC. And this contract has amounts you can go see online. We have a document titled In Reach Nursing Home Services Contract, which is submitted through our Human Services Department. And this is a DOJ, well, this is part of an agreement and with the department, and it's between the Department of Healthcare Policy and Financing and Larimer County's Human Services. And so this is something to, or receiving additional money to expand in our service area. And you can go read the details there. Number 4 is a full and final release settlement agreement between the County Attorney's Office, an agreement of Harmon versus Larimer County, U.S. District Court case number 24-CV-01422. And this, the next one is a Larimer County Court Services Plan for SY state fiscal year 2025 through 2026 for human services. And this is a plan, serves as a comprehensive proposal to secure and allocate funding for specialized intensive child welfare services. And that goes through June of this year through May of 31st of 2026. Again, you can go and look for that details on the website. The next is a volunteer document titled for Volunteers of America Home Delivered Amend 1618501. And this is requesting to amend the contract with Volunteers of America Colorado branch by extending the term of the contract through June 30th, 2027. And this is for eligibility requirements for in-home services for folks doing lots of work for those who are needing assistance at home. And then we have number 7 is the Volunteers of America Congregate Meals Amendment, amend 1618530. And this is, again, a contract between the Larimer County Department of Human Services, Volunteers of America, and provides community nutrition services, including congregate meals, counseling, and education. And that amendment goes through June 30th of 2027. Number 8 is, and our last agreement is the First Amendment to Subgrantee Agreement between Larimer County, Colorado, and the Larimer County Conservation District through the Office of Emergency Management, an amendment to the scope of work and budget for our Colorado Strategic Wildfire Action Plan grant that was awarded in 2024, requested by the Conservation District to more effectively reduce wildfire risk in North Cherokee Park, WUI. And so this is extended through August 31st of 2027. We have 2 liquor licenses. Liquor license renewal for Z Golf Food and Beverage Services, LLC. And this is, they established its name as Wedgwood Wedding and Banquet Center in LaPorte. And this is a renewal. Then we have a special event permit, the Family Center or La Familia submitted, and this is for Fort Collins Nursery Rock Garden Concert Series. And this is in Mulberry, Fort Collins. And then we have miscellaneous. We have several miscellaneous items. The first is a document titled Warranty Memorandum for Hugh Plowed Land Division Plan Development File Number 21-LAND 4129, and submitted by our Community Development Department. It requests approval of the warranty memorandum for the Hugh Planned Land Division. And this is between the Board of County Commissioners and Ms. Hugh Howe, and this is 2-year warranty period for all improvements required to be constructed. It expires on July 2nd, 2028. Then we have 6 stipulations for tax year of 2025. I won't go through all of those, and that's the last of the items on our consent agenda. Colleagues, do you have anything you wish to pull off the consent agenda? If not, then I ask Commissioner Cafals, please, to make that motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to approve the consent agenda for July 14th, 2026.
Thank you for making that motion. Any further deliberation? All those in favor? Aye.
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 That passes 3-0. Thank you. So now we're going to move on to our commissioners' guests. And we have Kimberly Culp, Chief Executive Officer for the Larimer Emergency Telephone Authority 911. And she is our guest today. Thank you, Kimberly, for being patient as we had to move things around. And we're so glad to have you here today. Welcome. And I'll just let you proceed with your presentation.
Fantastic. Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, commissioners and our guests in the room and online. So I wanted to give you an update on the status and the activities of the 911 Authority. And I'm going to touch on regional status updates, state updates, and federal updates for 911. Okay. So for regional, we're going to run through some of the technology programs that we have worked on and some really important initiatives to bring to your attention. For state, we're going to talk a little bit about legislation and those impacts and some tariffs that are forthcoming. And then our scare from a federal level of all things cybersecurity. Go ahead. So, Larimer Emergency Telephone Authority, we are the regional 911 authority. We cover Larimer and Jackson counties. So, when we talk about all of these programs, it impacts everybody that is in Larimer and Jackson County. We're formed through an intergovernmental agreement that covers 31 government agencies. And when LEDA has an initiative, we remove boundaries. And so that's really critical when we start talking about Larimer County, unincorporated areas. We don't start and stop our programs based on a township, a city boundary, or even the county boundaries. We develop those partnerships and remove all of those boundaries across all jurisdictions. So just as a reminder and something to bring forward for those guests today is that we do support video into 911. This is a program that allows a community member to dial 911, and if they are witnessing a crime or a fire, they can accept a link that we send to their phone, and then they can live stream the situation for us. So this was really helpful for a fire. It was up north of Wellington, and they were describing the fire, getting close to structures. We asked them to accept a live link. They accepted that, and they were able to show us the fire, show us where the fire was at, how close it was to structure. And then your emergency services personnel could determine if they should start air support immediately, even before they had units on scene. So this is a program we've been live with for several years. It has just been proven to be used hundreds of times in the dispatch center, and it truly brings that visual into an environment where they only can hear and discuss with the caller. You can also send photos to dispatch. So if you were able to see a burglary and see a car speed away and you snapped a photo and got the license plate, you can elect to send that into dispatch, and then they can take that photo and send it out to the first responders. Another item that we use these tools for is for accessibility. So for 911, historically, when somebody calls 911 and there's a language barrier, we have to conference in a third-party language line translation program. What this system allows us to do is automatically detect the language that is set on their phone, and then we can text them in English and it automatically translates it to Spanish or to Mandarin or to Farsi, and vice versa. They can text us the language of their choice and it will automatically translate it to English for us. So this tool is being used in the 911 centers to speed up that translation process to get help quicker to the location and the right help to the location. We don't want to send an officer and not an ambulance if the situation warrants that they need an ambulance. This next big regional project, I'm really proud to present to you. I'm a little ashamed it took me 11 years to get it done, but I was diligent and I worked on it for 11 years and we finally were able to get it done. So it's one of those situations where we truly needed to move mountains. And the problem with our 911 network is we are limited on our infrastructure, especially out to Estes Park. So we have one path to Estes Park, and that's connecting Loveland to Estes Park. We go 34 to 43, and then we drop down into the Estes Park area. Larimer Emergency Telephone Authority is not a utility, so we could not lease infrastructure on WAPA power lines, for example. So we've been very limited on this path. Unfortunately, we've had fires and floods that have impacted this connection, and what it results in is isolating Estes Park. We experienced our first large isolation in 2013 when they truly were on an island in Estes Park. And then somebody drove through the canyon and shot at the fiber, and they were a good shot, and they hit it, and they broke the fiber. We've had the fiber threatened by fires, of course. Cameron Peak in 2020, East Troublesome, when it came over, it threatened that entire community. And then, of course, Alexander Mountain Fire actually burned a portion of this fiber. So what we've been doing since truly 2015 was working on how can we close the gap and create a full, what we would call, ring network. So you'll see the rest of the area in Larimer County is on a ring, and then we have two dead spots. Ends in Estes Park, the other one down in that Longmont Lions area. So we started to work with CDOT around Highway 36. They were doing a large fiber project, asking them if we could lease fiber. And the answer was no for a long time. And then I attended a legislative summer hearing and where we were talking about initiatives, broadband initiatives, and really compelled to get a yes. We need to fix this problem. It was on the heels of the fire in 2024, and CDOT gave us a big yes. So if you want to go ahead to the next one. Estes Park was always a yes. Tell us what we can do. How can we make that connection? So Estes Park Trailblazer connected into the CDOT fiber from Town Hall to Pole Hill. CDOT agreed to a lease with LIDA that connects us from Pole Hill all the way down to Highway 66 in Lyons. And then the problem is, what do we do in that Lyons area? It's not in Larimer County, so how can we compel Longmont, Lyons to partner with us? And we were able to get Next Light at the table, and they agreed to a lease fiber to LIDA in that Longmont area and connect from CDOT to where we have our lease on that long black stretch of fiber down to Longmont. So we were able to go live, and we are now on a complete ring to Estes Park. So an 11-year project, but we're done, and we've removed that isolation incident from and that risk from Estes Park. What's great about this project is Lita owns the lease from Estes all the way down to Longmont, and we're leasing enough fiber. We can offer that to the other government partners. So if Larimer County wanted to improve their services and use our ring, they're able to do so. So we've been in conversations with Mark Pfaffinger and Mark Olson saying we've got the connection, and we're happy to partner with Larimer County to truly improve services for everybody that we connect with. So this is, again, a huge celebration we did for Lita, and it just really reflects the state and local partnerships. On the next slide, I want to show you all of the people that were involved to make this happen. So this was me talking about it for 11 years. Again, I wish it only took me a year to do. But truly, without all of these individuals coming together from these different agencies, municipal, state with CDOT, to lead a board funding this initiative, we wouldn't have been able to get it done. So we've been operating on this for 6 weeks, which was good timing going into this very dry, hot weather that we have. Great. The next one is new as well, and this is one of those situations where you get asked to do something and you ponder, how am I going to make this happen? So Lita is governed by CRS Title 29, Article 11, Section 105. That's what outlines what we're allowed to fund with our community members' 911 surcharge. And we've always been able to fund radio equipment in the 911 dispatch center, but historically we haven't funded that, mainly because the agencies took on that expenditure and then they already had monies allocated, capital replacement, etc. The LEDA board was asked by many of our partners to consider funding the radio consoles, supporting the radio consoles, and to plan for ongoing capital replacements. That was a $6 million ask. So it took us a little bit to figure out how we can do that, financially responsible, and sustain that. And even though I was able to find a path forward on funding it, the big question was, how do I maintain it? So my comment back to the board was, the only way I think we can be sustainable in this is if we can partner with Larimer County. Larimer County supports a radio shop that is top tier. So your personnel, trained, dedicated, historical experience, and responsive to problems. I don't have that kind of team, so why reinvent it? So we developed an IGA with Larimer County that you approved, and we are supporting and funding the equipment. And through an IGA, we are funding Larimer County for a dedicated radio technician and the use of your radio shop to support these consoles. There's 71 radio consoles throughout just the Larimer County 911 centers, and we're in the process of doing all of those upgrades now. So this partnership, why it's important, if you were to do it on your own, you would have paid more money. By us purchasing 70 versus Larimer County purchasing 11, that's how many consoles you have, we received steep discounts from Motorola. So this regional, even though we're all independent agencies, having this live at LEDA really saved our community members money. And then having your team support radio and that support from your county manager all the way down to your radio division under IT saves all of our community members money, even outside of Larimer County, so the cities and the towns. So we're incredibly thankful for this partnership, and it's a great example of how we can pull together, get creative with solutions, and at the end of the day, do business better and save money. So right now, we have upgraded everyone's radio consoles except for Fort Collins. We're in the process of doing Fort Collins. They're in day 2 of a 3-week implementation project. And then we're going to be on the latest and greatest radio consoles used in the 911 system. So we're really pleased with this project and partnership. And the next item I wanted to update you on, it had a little bit of a scare. So there was a pretty public national story about an emergency alert system. The name is Code Red, and it's used by our neighbors to the east and various other alerting authorities around the state and across the nation. And their system got compromised. And their system got compromised that their community members' data was being held hostage, and it was actually compromised to the point where it was a ransom attack. So from FEMA all the way down, shut off their ability to send emergency alerts and take that system offline. So we have been serving as Weld County's primary emergency alert system since their Code Red system was compromised. What this caused us to do was to pause and think, my goodness, what happens to us? We don't have a redundant emergency alert system. We have a lot of tools, and you'll see on the left side all these amazing tools that we've implemented to make sure that we can reach our community members through American Sign Language. We send our emergency alerts in the multiple languages, in sign language. We have our citizen opt-in program, of course, the WIA that we talk about, those wireless emergency alerts. We can do it all. But if our system got compromised, then what? So I presented this to the LEDA board and said we need to get a redundant end-to-end system, meaning all new FEMA certifications, completely separate. There can't be one shared cloud database. We can't use anything that's alike in case an attack happened on the Everbridge system. The LEDA board allocated funding for that. We made it a priority, and we went live with the emergency alert redundant system April 1st. This doesn't require our community members to do anything different. They only see the Everbridge system. Their processes are not impacted. Nothing changes for them. What I do and my team does is we take that data and we are pushing it to the RAVE system every month so it stays updated and current with everything that's in the Everbridge system. On June 26th, around 3 p.m., which was a Friday night, Everbridge got shut down. There was a denial of service attack. We received notifications, and our Everbridge system was offline for 12 hours. So as I sat on a technical bridge, Everbridge supports multiple agencies around Colorado, and they were also national and international. I was able to breathe a sigh of relief because we had our backup system live and active and ready to go as of April 1st. So June 26th, we were still new and green on it, but we had practiced, we had sent test alerts, and we knew we had a redundant system online. So we are now taking this model to the state Homeland Security Office. We're taking this model national as well and talking to FEMA about how critical it is to encourage, if not create those shell sentences that agencies, if you're an alerting authority, you really should consider complete redundant systems. So we'll be presenting this to the Homeland Security in the next month. State 911 initiative. So a lot of information here. I just wanted to point out, I don't know what happened to my graphic, kind of funky, but in the middle there, in 2019, we were paying CenturyLink, who was our only 911 provider in Colorado, a total of $86,000 a year. And now we're paying them over $1 million a year for 911 tariffs. And that's just the state that we're in. CenturyLink applies for a tariff and they say, hey, we want to charge more for that connection to 911. 911 authorities can appeal that, but it's ultimately approved by the Public Utilities Commission. CenturyLink just asked for another tariff increase, and it's going to get approved, and they're going to have a second tariff increase this year, and that one's going to get approved. So we try to get involved, we try to challenge it, but those are the kind of models that we need to really look at a legislative initiative on how do we create competition in Colorado when we're talking about those core 911 services. So that's what we're engaged in. We're anticipating for legislation for 2026-27, all those conversations around accessibility. LEDA's boxes are all checked. We, again, have multiple languages we alert in. We have sign language. We're the only ones in Colorado that push all of our emergency alerts out and have them sign language and Braille reader compatible. There's also been a lot of conversation at the legislature about AI in the 911 space. And our opinion on that is AI should be a job assist, not take over. So one of those items where it's doing live translation should never replace the voice of a real human and a real person who can discern what's being said to them. All right, next one. On the federal level, there's two items I wanted to brief you on, and this direct-to-cell and the direct-to-cell satellites is absolutely fascinating. And if you are a T-Mobile subscriber in some AT&T pockets, If you go in non-service areas, you're going to see a little satellite on your phone. So if you're out of cell coverage, it's going to go from bars to little satellite. That's going to become more readily available, which is absolutely fascinating because now we're not talking about areas like Glen Haven, Red Feather, Crystal Lakes that we may not have coverage in because satellite's going to be able to replace those cell towers. So the FCC hasn't said thou shall for carriers to provide the service, but it's becoming more and more readily available. So as we're tracking this, we're asking those difficult questions of direct to satellite. What if I need to send an emergency alert? Will it go satellite to phone? So we're having those conversations at the FCC, talking with the wireless carriers, making sure that things are compatible when people dial 911. Will we get location information if they're connected to satellite? How do those 911 calls route? And then can I trigger a wireless emergency alert using a satellite connection and get to those devices? So I anticipate this next year having a lot more answers in this space, but it's really a fascinating time to watch how this is getting built out and more readily available for our community members. The next piece on cybersecurity, Homeland Security said whatever you're doing today is not enough. These attacks are real. And so we reevaluated all of our security measures in 2025, and we implemented a SOC, so that's a Security Operations Center. So we have always looking at penetration attempts, and so we just did everything we could to harden, make sure, and had an independent analysis, making sure that all of our systems from a 911 perspective meet those federal level standards. So we're doing this real time, and that's definitely something to awaken to, right? Whatever you're doing today is not enough. It's a forever evolving situation when we talk about cybersecurity. So those are the updates I wanted to hit for you and just get in front of you and give you a brief of all the wonderful activities we've been doing and these partnerships that we have strengthened over this last year. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Kimberly. What a fantastic update. We are grateful for the partnership and congratulations on completing an 11-year project and getting the consoles and IGA with us. It certainly is taking perseverance, and I know after the Camera Peak fire, we were very, very concerned about that, having 911 services cut off to Estes. So glad to hear that it's been quickly, not quickly, but it's resolved, and I'm sure we could be constantly evaluating that. I think probably my colleagues have questions and comments as well. I'll save my questions till after they spoke. I'll start with Commissioner Stevens.
Yeah, thank you, Kimberly. This is really great. I just really appreciate you sort of playing the chess game and staying, a couple moves ahead of kind of where we need to be. I think that's really important. The redundancy around the 911 system. I mean, it's something it makes total sense to me, and I, didn't even think about the idea of that. There being sort of a cyber attack on a system. I didn't know about the Weld County situation. Certainly didn't know we were offline at any point. So, I mean, the great news for the public is that you are staying on top of these kind of concerns that that the public doesn't even know about, but we need to make sure that, we keep people safe. And so I just really appreciate that. Actually, I'm next week attending a conference for the National Association of Counties, and I'm on the Resilient Counties Innovation Council, and we're actually talking about innovation and how we're using that around emergency situations. And so if it's okay with you, I'd love to kind of share some of the information too that you're doing. Not take credit for it by any means, but just say, these are the kind of partnerships that we have in Larimer County.
Commissioner, absolutely, and I'd be happy to send you some information so you can share it regarding the emergency alert system about the outages if you would like.
Yeah, that would be great. And then just, making, just being on the cutting edge with the Braille and the sign language compatibility, the radio, figuring out a way to get that done. I mean, your perseverance on the 11 years of making sure that we would have that kind of coverage and that we wouldn't have any spots in the county that weren't accessible, to the 911 system. Just really remarkable. I didn't know about the uploading the videos too, what a great idea to be able to do that, because I mean, having a visual of what people are maybe better or not better at describing a situation or how close that is to a house, but when you have a video or a photographic evidence, that really, I'm sure, helps you do your job better and helps our first responders. So just really impressed by the work that you're doing, really thankful for the update, and yeah, anything you can send me would be great. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Kafalis, you have questions or comments?
Actually, I have both. First of all, as was stated, thank you very much for this very positive update and for your perseverance, your due diligence, and your expertise. It's well done. It's greatly appreciated. It helps all of us in the community, especially in those areas where coverage is unreliable. A couple of questions that I have is regarding the going in reverse chronological based on your presentation, the Starlink connection and what shows up on our cell phones. I was up in the mountains recently and I saw that and I wondered, but then I was reluctant. Well, I think it automatically uploads or something, but then I wondered if there's a cost to that. Can you explain to regular folks, is that in effect and how does that work and do we pay for it?
You already pay for it when you pay your monthly bill on the cell phones, no extra cost. So the cell carriers have added that as a benefit to keep you connected. So it's fantastic. You don't have to have a satellite plan, pay extra. If you use it to call 911, you're not going to get an extra fee or an extra charge. So truly, it's private businesses coming forward and doing the right thing in the 911 space. So it's fantastic.
Is that just applied to 911 or you can phone a family member if necessary or perhaps to send a text message?
So right now, text to 911, phone calls to 911, some carriers are going to allow you to use it as general service. And so that's what's going to be coming. That's on the edge. And so some T-Mobile customers, I think, signed up for the beta to say, I want to try that for general cell connectivity. The vision is going to be, yes, it's for all. It's not going to just be for emergency. It'll be for all. And my understanding, and I hope they keep it this way, they're not adding an extra fee onto monthly subscription, which would be great.
Great, thank you. Just a couple more questions real quick. Regarding the various enhancements that you described, for example, the regional radio project and all of that, I'm wondering in particular, earlier this year I was up at Red Feather Lakes Elementary School, and they don't have very good or any non-existent cell phone coverage, cell service. And so the only way they can inform the sheriff's office or emergency services that a situation is arising, they have a Starlink or they have a satellite phone. How will these enhancements help that kind of a situation? And also another example is when the Cameron Peak fire happened in 2020, a lot of the folks along the Poudre Canyon route, they had landlines still. People still do have landlines. And the above line poles came down, and it took months to get that fixed and for people to have their phone service. So with those two examples, perhaps, how will this work improve upon that and make folks safer?
Yeah, great questions.
Oh.
So I'm going to start with the radio communications inside schools, and this is actually new, and it's phenomenal. We're watching Boulder. Boulder's doing a beta right now. It's called Smart Connect. And what it's doing is it's turning on radio communication and using Wi-Fi signal. So if you have good internet service inside a school, which many of them do, but they can't get out on their radio. So school officials in the office can't talk to that SRO in the building. It's just a dead zone. So the Smart Connect is going to allow radio communications using Wi-Fi. So that's going to help our mountain communities, for our law enforcement personnel, and all of our schools being able to turn these Wi-Fi hubs into radio connectivity. So that's going to be absolutely amazing. Boulder's in a beta. We're lined up right next to that. So as soon as Boulder betas it and says, hey, we're good to go, we'll work with the state and get that turned on. We're going to be able to do that at a regional level, an incredibly cheaper model, because we're going to look at it at a LEDA perspective versus all these agencies having to negotiate independent contracts. So that's going to be that benefit of this regional piece. As it pertains to those canyons in the narrows, if they can get that satellite piece connection. So on some areas, it's still kind of hard for satellite because it is kind of tight, narrow canyons. But if they can, or even if they go across the road, they're going to be able to use that cell device and dial 911, call, text, because they're going to have that satellite connection. And again, as those satellite services come more online for the carriers, they'll be able to use it for general communications as well.
Wonderful. And my last question, thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Kimberly. And earlier, if you could restate when your comment about the enhanced video link and the photo link.
Yes.
What I understood is that if one is in a situation and they call 911, then sort of automatically you'll get a text, and that will provide the video link that you can opt into. Is that the case? And or if you get LIDA alerts already, NOCO alerts, does that provide the video link? I hope that makes sense.
It does, and no and no. So when you dial 911, you're going to be connected to a dispatcher, and the dispatcher will ask you permission to send you a text. Then you have to, so you say yes, so you give us permission, we send you a text, and you have to accept the link, and then that will open up a live stream video for us. So it won't be automatic. There's no risk there of something happening with your device that you're not aware of. So we send that link, you accept it, and then everything that you're showing is real time. The dispatcher can then conference in people in the field, so then the firefighters, law enforcement personnel can see that video real time as well. So that's separate bucket. On the NOCO alert, emergency alert side, not connected, completely separate. We still encourage all of our community members to sign up by going to that website. Or if they want to get all emergency alerts. A question we had yesterday, we had a small evacuation area for a fire, that Taft Hill area, and people said, hey, I want to know. So if you want to know, regardless of your location for that situational awareness, people can text the word NOCO alert to 888-777, and they'll get all emergency alerts throughout Larimer County.
Thank you very much. Thank you for clarifying. So one takeaway is that if one calls 911, the 911 dispatcher knows automatically to ask the question, would you like to receive a video link to provide us with
Right.
more information?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Again, great presentation. I remember touring your center 2.5 years ago, and the things you just described were actually already available. So I got to witness that. And you had me call in as a domestic violence victim with one of the Congress representatives at that time. And I was so amazed how you all just knew to, you could turn off my phone so it looked like it was off, but you could still see me or hear me as a domestic violence victim. And so I could carefully, look like my phone was off, but I could be connected to a dispatcher and 911. And then also the links were available then. So that, I know this, I wanted the public to know this has been available for a while, and I was so amazed at how it was really hands off for someone who's maybe in a situation where they cannot even acknowledge that they are in danger. Has that system stayed the same, or has it been enhanced over the last 2.5 years since I got to participate and witness that? And I know you have now moved out of that second floor in our OEM, but I'm wondering how it's enhanced and is it expanded even into rural areas, or any limitations in coverage with that?
Great questions. And yes, we can blur the screen of the caller if they're in a domestic violence situation or an active shooter situation, heaven forbid. So keeps them safe. We can also blur it for the dispatcher. So if there's a situation we don't want them to see, and then they can still let the responding units see all of that. No limitations. As long as you're connected, we can send it to you. So if you're in rural Colorado and you're still connected and you're dialing off of a cell phone, we can't send a link to a landline. So that would be that one limitation. If all you have is landline service, unfortunately, we can't send you any of that through an analog connection. From an enhancement perspective, all of those language pieces have been expanded. And before it was just a text language translation, and now it's voice. It is automatically detecting the language and it's doing translation and it's transcribing it for the dispatcher. So it's going to listen and you're still talking to the caller, but you're able to get a live translation for you and see it and read it and have it part of the record. We're also using the tool now for quality assurance review. So you want to make sure that those dispatchers, the burnout, that those calls, that they're still showing a lot of compassion and engagement. So behind the scenes, they're listening for tone, and they're listening for certain keywords, and there's some quality assurance metrics to make sure that nothing gets missed, that we're always delivering that responsible service level to our callers. The other piece of it, which is interesting, is that we expanded it to non-emergency use as well. So if somebody calls in and they're like, can I get a hold of police records today, a copy of a report? You bet, but we can also send you a link. So now you can go straight to the link and then you fill it all out, the form on the website. So we've expanded it from just emergency response to now more of a community response. So then that way the person has the link on their phone, they can do their requests, submit it, and it's done. So we really have taken that tool to say, how else can we build it out and use it and make sure that it's covering all those gaps that we had and make it easier for our community members.
Wonderful. I'm glad to hear that. And it's great to hear. I'm sure a lot of folks have been assisted with that ability to, you said blur the screen or blank out the screen. I was just really impressed with that. My other question is, when you talk about the IGA and the radios and being, I was hoping you could expand just a little bit about, and I'm hoping the audience knows this is really interesting, cool questions. So I'm hoping this is also really important for the public to hear. But the radios you said is top tier, and now everyone is kind of being implemented using those radio consoles. You know, we have different agencies, different jurisdictions, different systems sometimes, but really there is no lines when emergencies happen and mutual aid, or we all have to respond. I know sometimes in the past, I'm not sure this is true anymore, there has been maybe because of system gaps or different, I think we had a tour of a dispatch center and they were talking about how they're, even between counties, sometimes the two systems have trouble connecting or communicating. Does this radio console and IGA that you've accomplished, having everyone implement it, will that help kind of I wouldn't say smooth it out, but just kind of help where everyone's kind of able to communicate quickly, clearly, and consistently in times of emergencies?
We haven't fully solved the problem between county lines, but it's an ongoing work in progress. As it pertains to our 911 centers in Larimer County, yes, it's standardized use and age of equipment and what is being installed at all the centers from a maintenance perspective. The haves and have-nots are not okay when you're talking about emergency systems and emergency response. We don't want someone's equipment 12 years old and someone else has the latest and greatest 5 years old. We want to make sure that everyone is operating on equipment that's up, configured the same, standardized across the board, has capital replacement, and has a good response model. All of those were questionable prior to LEDA taking this project on in partnership with Larimer County. Some agencies had budget cuts and didn't have capital replacements. Some agencies didn't have a support model that allowed for those proactive support, monthly maintenance, and PM. So yes, it solves all those problems. We're sharing better across county lines and working on closing those gaps. And so hopefully we'll continue to make progress as we're looking at Boulder and Weld.
Fantastic. And as obviously we understand, we've been assisting Weld since they've had a compromised system with the ransomware. That's unfortunate for them. And I'm glad we can assist. And I'm assuming, for two-part question, I'm assuming the capacity sounds like could absorb taking over their systems as well for emergency alerts and things. So that obviously there's some capacity as well as redundancy in our system. Would that be a correct assumption?
It is. So Everbridge's system supports large accounts, New York, the entire state. So the capacity is not an issue whatsoever by being able to do that. It's all just about pre-planning and not trying to do it after the fact. And so we actually are the alerting authority for 5 different areas, so it's pretty phenomenal. El Paso Teller recently asked us to back them up as well because they didn't have a redundant system, and they were impacted by that Everbridge outage. And of course, we've got fires that are starting to head north into El Paso, Teller counties. So we are backing them up as well. So yes, no capacity issue. We would never agree to regional or state level support if it was going to compromise service to our community.
Yeah, I would never think you'd do that, but I was just curious how
Yes.
much that would be. And when I was at Harvard Kennedy School in June, I was talking to a person who was in charge of the New York City, or the New York State system, where they're switching from an old system that's been patched up for 50 years to a whole new system, and they were trying to build all these redundancy and how what massive project that must be and how that must be moved over and all the systems and checks and balances and really worried about even with emergency response or folks falling through the cracks and just thinking about the amount of data and information and switching that over and getting that in the capacity. Just I have had that in the back of my mind. So when you said all of this, I thought, wow, how do you absorb an extra emergency response area? That's just kind of fascinating to me. Then the next question is when we talk about, and this is the last question I have for now, and I might have, and when you're sending that information to Commissioner Stevens, I hope that you will send that too, because I'm also on some national committees, and a Rural Action Caucus, would be, the Rural Action Caucus would be very pertinent for that as well. And I'm on the SEMTEC, the State Emergency Medical Trauma Services Advisory Council, and we're having some conversations about response times and things. So I think this would be really relevant as well. And I'm sure talking to some of the, like Roy Fork Fire District, some of them just understanding some of their concerns. But I'm curious, as we are talking about the redundant system, and you have your system and you are working on these other counties, I'm assuming that our redundant system, if you're bringing in other groups, that they might not have the same protections if we're covering. So I'm wondering when we are interacting with other groups, if we're the only ones in the state doing this, are we having, I'm assuming we're always here at Larimer County, it's like every hour. That's why I sleep better at night knowing we have people who worry about systems being attacked every hour. I'm assuming that's an ever evolving practice of improving and checking and changing and making sure that is for us, our system. But then when you're bringing in other systems, may not have those extra firewalls or extra security measures, that puts a little bit more risk in the system as well. So is that kind of also built into that system, just as we help others, that we have extra, protection, helping, but also making sure that we don't also fall to the same challenges?
Yeah. The firewalls are real and they must remain because, as the feds pointed out, what you're doing today is never enough. And so that risk of saying, hey, we're going to connect into your network, we're not connecting into their network.
Okay.
What we're doing is we're working with FEMA to get authorization under our umbrella to alert on their behalf versus tying into their network, because you're absolutely right. I have no controls outside of our county, outside of our 2 counties in our jurisdiction, and I don't know what their firewall protections are, and the last thing I would want would be to compromise it. So we've worked with FEMA to become an alerting authority and get those certifications of their counties under us. So we will do it on their behalf. We're not going to tie into their network. That risk is too great, and I can't control that. So excellent point, Madam Chair.
Well, I appreciate that because I was wondering about that. And I do know some of those commissioners very well, and I know they're very concerned about some of those things, and I know they're working on it, but they're also, like us, are experiencing, have experience and are experiencing wildfires. And I know there's been a lot of, I'm sure it's been helpful. So thank you I think that's what we have to remember as a state. We're all in this together. And obviously really proud of the work you've done. Thank you, and proud of our partnership, and just grateful for the presentation today. I look forward to getting some of the information they're sending. And if we have more questions, maybe email you or send them to Lorinda to have her email you. Would that be okay?
Absolutely. We
Great.
can go direct, or you can work through your county manager. And I will make sure I get information over to you on the
Awesome.
redundant system. So thank you, commissioners,
Yeah.
for the time today.
I'm going to see
Appreciate
if Lorinda wanted to make a final comment and wrap this up.
I guess I'll just say, one of the values of the county is being good stewards of public resources. And LIDA is the example of that. You see all of these investments they make. They could charge more. They could charge a higher surcharge, but they don't, because they only need to collect enough to do this good work. And so I want to really congratulate you. I don't think you've raised rates since 2018. So you've been able to do a lot of this with the board of directors that you have and with your far-looking approach. Kimberly, as you probably heard, is the definition of tenacious. Once she recognizes there's a problem that needs to be solved, she doesn't stop till it's solved. And I think Estes Park and those communities in the canyon have you to thank for that. So thank you for being a good partner. It's always a pleasure to work with Lita. Our team really enjoys the partnership that we have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And I 1,000% what you said, Lorenda. And I want to add something. Would you, we really appreciate you being here as the executive director and stuff, but would you thank your board, the LEDA board? Because they're, as you said, you took it to the board, they made these decisions. And I want to just make sure they know we appreciate their work and appreciate their partnership and willingness to support you and go forward. And would you just express our gratitude and that we're grateful for them and their service?
Yes,
So
absolutely. Thank
thank
you so
you.
much.
Thank you so much. And we're so glad to have you here today. Have a wonderful day.
You too.
Thanks. All right, we're going to move on. That I hope the public enjoyed that as much as I did. We have discussion items now we have one item on discussion items, and that is a 2026 private activity bond allocation to Housing Catalyst for the Country Ranch Apartments, which is apartments rehabilitation. And so this is a summary to resolve to approve the assignment of $7,274,800 of Larimer County's 2026 private activity bond allocation to Housing Catalyst for issuance of private activity bonds to finance rehabilitation of the Country Ranch Apartments in partnership with April Housing. So I'm going to invite Leah Rodriguez from our Housing Stability Department and Allie to kind of present on this, and we have some guests in the room, and so we have an action on this. So welcome, Aaliyah and Allie, and thank you for this presentation today.
Thank you, Commissioner. I can get started as Allie pulls up the presentation for us. Good morning. Okay. Today we're bringing a resolution to authorize the assignment of Larimer County's 2026 Private Activity Bond, or PAB. So each year, Larimer County receives PAB allocation from the state of Colorado. This allocation enables us to issue tax-exempt bonds to support eligible projects. The county has the option to either use this allocation directly or assign it to another eligible entity that can put it to work on qualified projects. In keeping with our current policy, we did conduct a competitive process earlier this year. Our PAB review committee received 2 applications this year. One of them was incomplete and withdrew from the process. The other was from April Housing. And so after thorough review of the application, the committee unanimously recommends assigning 100% of the county's allocation, which totals just over $7.2 million, to April Housing's project, who has identified Housing Catalyst as their bond issuer. By approving the resolution today, you'll be enabling April Housing to leverage this financing tool to preserve 118 affordable low-income rental housing units in Larimer County, which directly aligns with our housing goals and the broader priorities. Just as a reminder, this $7.2 million is a reminder to the board and to the public. This isn't a cash award, this isn't a grant, but it's just the ability to issue these tax-exempt bonds, which are used to build and preserve affordable housing. So at this time, I want to give our partners most of the time here at the podium today. I'm going to introduce April Housing, and then Housing Catalyst is also going to have a presentation today to just talk about the broader impact of Larimer County's private activity bonds. So up first, I can introduce Joseph Backlett, the VP Resyndication Project Manager for April Housing. He's going to talk to you about April Housing's portfolio and Country Ranch Apartments.
Thank you, Leah, and welcome. Come up to the podium, please, and introduce yourself. And I'm anxious to hear from you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Pleasure to be with you today. Joseph Backlett, VP Project Manager for April Housing. So today I'll give a brief introduction to who April Housing is, and then go over our Country Ranch project. So about 5 years ago, Blackstone made a large investment in affordable housing nationwide, and as part of that investment, they set up April Housing as the asset management firm to oversee those properties. Currently, April Housing oversees roughly 65,000 units, 450 properties located in 40 states across the nation. We're a team of about 125 personnel located in Los Angeles, California, professionals, and in Colorado, we have about 19 assets and about totaling 3,000 units that we're looking to preserve. So now I'll go into our Country Ranch project. So in Larimer County, we have a total of 5 properties. 3 of these are located in City of Fort Collins. 3 of them are located in Loveland. As you can see on the table on the screen, that far right column where it says Laura expiration, that notes when the affordability protection for those residents of those properties will expire without an additional allocation of PABs and low-income housing tax credits. So of the 5 properties, we elected to select Country Ranch first because it had a near-term blur expiration of 2030, and it has a lower unit count. So we thought it was a smaller project, it would be easier to pursue the bonds. So that was part of our selection process. Country Ranch is located about 6 miles southeast of downtown Fort Collins and just, southeast and just west of the 25 freeway. Here's an aerial view of the property itself. It's composed of 23 buildings. These are all 2-story buildings. 17 of those buildings are residential apartments. 1 is a community center, and the rest are garages. The property has a pool, on-site tot lot, a half basketball court, and just a large amount of common area green space. Total units of the property are 118. It's a mixture of 2 and 3 bedroom units. We have both flats and townhouses at the property. On the screen there, you can see some of the townhouses. Property was built again in year 2000, and the affordability restrictions expire in 2030. Here are just some exterior photos of the property. Here's some photos of the amenities. The pool, half basketball court, exercise or fitness room inside the community center and the tot lot, all of which would be renovated. And here's some photos of the unit interiors. Unit interiors, while they present well, they're quite dated. A lot of these, original cabinets and facades and appliances from, 2000 when the property was constructed. This is a high-level overview of the construction and the design process. So overall, we're planning to invest $11 million in hard costs alone to renovate this project. If you divide that by the 118 units, you get to about $93,000 per unit. That's not direct cost in the unit, that's spread across the project. In terms of the scope of work, inside the units, we're going to be doing an extensive renovation. So all new appliances, refacing the cabinets, new quartz countertops, flooring, lighting, new HVAC system, bathroom accessories, and paint. On the exterior, new paint, doors, lighting improvements, siding repairs as needed. Throughout the site, parking lots and driveways will be milled and overlaid. Where you have spalding and cracking, a new slurry coat will be put down. In terms of landscaping, we'll be trying to install new drought-tolerant landscaping throughout. Renovations to the pool, that will include new mechanical systems. Accessible paths of travel will be evaluated and upgraded. We'll put a new playground in, improve picnic areas, upgrade the sports courts and the lighting. Clubhouse will receive a similar improvements to the units, cabinets, countertops, flooring, lighting, etc. And the project will be Enterprise Green Communities compliant. In terms of the project timeline, roughly speaking, we'll be applying initially to CHAFA through an LI process Q4 this year. The secondary application will go in January. And we're anticipating being able to close on the financing and start construction likely late Q2 or early Q3. Construction process is anticipated to take roughly 18 months. For the units themselves, we anticipate standard units will take about 2 units to renovate. Accessible units will take about 4. Standard units will take about 2 weeks to renovate. Accessible units will take about 4 weeks. So tenants will be fully out of their units during that time. They'll either be located to on-site vacant units or off-site to hotel units. We'll be engaging a relocation consultant who will consult each family ahead of time to learn their specific needs, and we'll also be engaging a moving company to handle all of the moving. About 2 months prior to construction start, we'll host a town hall where we'll get all the residents together in the clubhouse, walk them through everything, field any questions, and provide any answers that they may need. Lastly, we have a high-level overview of the capital stack. There's a lot of numbers here, so I'll try to just break this down fairly in a simplistic manner. So total investment for this project is roughly $60 million. You have the sources on the top and then costs and use that they'll go towards on the bottom. Most of the sources are composed of these bond proceeds from the bonds, the PABs that we're requesting today. That's $22 million. The next highest amount are from federal equity. Those are going to be 4% tax credits. That's roughly $19.6 million. And the next largest amount is the seller note. So as part of this renovation, April Housing will be putting back in roughly $8.1 million of our own proceeds to essentially fill the gap and make the deal work. We'll also be deferring more than 80% of our developer fee. That's that $4.4 million amount. In terms of the uses and what these sources will go towards, $28.8 million, which is the bulk of the cost, is going towards the acquisition of the project. And the way that works is essentially through the low-income housing tax credit program, we have to create a new entity which purchases the property from the old entity. And so that's part of that purchasing process is the land and the improvements, and that's what that $28 million symbolizes. The $11 million in rehab costs you saw from the previous slide. The next highest number is that financing cost. It looks large, but that's primarily composed of interest, legal costs, and other financing fees that we have to support to accomplish the project. And then the developer fee is that $5.46 million amount. But as mentioned earlier, we're deferring 80% of that, which will be then be paid out over a roughly 10 to 12 year period through NOI, net operating income. That concludes my portion of the presentation, and I think I'll be passing it to Housing Catalyst now.
Right.
So next we'll have Kristen Fritz from Housing Catalyst, who's here to talk about their role. Sorry.
Thank you. Welcome, Kristen.
Good morning. Thank you, Commissioners. I'm Kristen Fritz, and I'm the Chief Real Estate Officer at Housing Catalyst, and we are the housing authority for the City of Fort Collins. So, as you know, as a public housing authority, our core mission is to create vibrant, sustainable communities throughout northern Colorado. We have a number of award-winning communities throughout the community, and we are an experienced developer who have been doing this work for over 50 years. To date, we have issued over $50 million in private activity bond allocation, actually from Larimer County, since 2013. So this is a long, ongoing, and successful partnership. This amount actually does include this 2026 award of $7.2 million, which I'll talk a little bit about kind of how that's going to work. But we always like to take the opportunity to remind you and the community what we have been able to use the private activity bonds that have been awarded from Larimer County to Housing Catalyst, what we've been able to do with those resources. So we have renovated 95 units at our Village on Plum property in 2015. We built 72 new units at our Village on Redwood in 2017. We preserved and renovated 258 units at our Village on Shields in 2018. We built 96 new units at our village on Horsetooth in 2018 as well. And we built 79 new units downtown at Oak 140 in 2023. We completed our village on Impala, which is 86 units of both new and preserved housing units in 2025. And of course, our Village on Eastbrook project, which is currently under construction, which will deliver 73 more units of affordable housing. We should be completed with that next year. So hundreds and hundreds of units have been built and preserved utilizing our tax-exempt private activity bond allocations. So over 925 units that's the grand total. And this year, the allocation of $7.2 million will help support the rehabilitation of Country Ranch apartments. And just kind of as a note of structure, the private activity bond award will actually be awarded to Housing Catalyst as the public housing authority. We will then turn and issue the bonds for April Housing's project. Should there be any delay or issue with that project, we would then be able to deploy that private activity bond to a Housing Catalyst project or to another project with a partner in the Northern Colorado pipeline. That is one of the benefits of the Housing Authority being a bond issuer and for the private activity bonds being allocated to us and making sure that we do deploy them locally. And just the development pipeline, taking a look at that, we have a robust pipeline that includes a Housing Catalyst renovation effort known as our Villages Rehab. Of course, April Housing's Country Ranch preservation. We completed Village on Eastbrook already. Coming up, we have CARE's Greenbrier renovation, Housing Catalyst new construction project at 314 North Howes. There is a new construction project up on Bristlecone that is being planned. And then April Housing, as you saw, actually owns a number of assets in Fort Collins, and there will be future need to continue to do these renovation efforts on all three of those properties. And Housing Catalyst also has additional preservation needs in the pipeline, both in the short and long term. And of course, there are all kinds of different opportunities out there. We have a robust pipeline. Currently, the current constraint for us delivering affordable housing is, of course, the lack of resources and the competition for resources to be able to do both the addition of new units and the important work of preservation. We tried to keep it fairly short this morning, but we are, of course, happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much. Thank you both for the presentation. And I will now see if commissioners have questions. Commissioner Stevens, do you have questions or comments?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Joseph, for your presentations. Appreciate that. Just a few questions. So with the HVAC renovation, is there any, will that lower people's sort of, heating or electric bills, or are we anticipating any kind of cost savings for the residents who live there because of that?
Yeah, we'll be putting in new low flow fixtures and energy efficient, electrical fixtures, which would lower their utility bills.
Okay, great. And then let's see, I wrote down my questions. Can you remind me of the AMI breakdown for that?
Sure. So all of the units are currently at 60% AMI, and we would preserve them at 60% AMI.
And then how long, so will this extend that another 20 years or more, or what's the extension of the?
It'd be an additional 30-year extension.
30-year
on the
affordability, which
Correct.
Is really important. Great.
Mm-hmm.
And then my final question sort of is maybe for Kristen, is that this is so usually we're giving the dollars to you and you guys are doing the rehab and they're your buildings. So can you just explain a little bit about the relationship between April Housing and Housing Catalyst and kind of, there again, I think that pushing these dollars out to where we can use them is really important, and keeping that affordability is hugely important. But can you just tell me just a little bit about the partnership, because it's a little bit more unusual than some of the other ways that we've allocated these private activity bonds?
Yes, we are happy to and agree that it is a little bit confusing. So, Housing Catalyst is both our own developer, and you have seen we have used private activity bonds for our own development purposes. But we also act as a special limited partner to a number of different, as a partner in a number of different development projects over the years, both in the case of preservation, actually, and in new construction efforts. We have done this a couple different ways, and I want to say that not everyone has to use, Housing Catalyst is a bond issuer. It is up to the developer to choose who they want to issue their bonds. We realized going through this process that the most efficient way to do this, knowing that we intended to partner with April Housing for their project, was for the bonds to actually come to Housing Catalyst, and us then turn and issue the bonds instead of it being awarded to April Housing, who would then need to give the bonds to us, and then we would then need to turn and issue the bonds for the project. We realized that was a little bit of an unnecessary step in the process, so that's when we sort of shifted gears and said, let's just make actually Housing Catalyst be the applicant, show them the project that it is going to be used for, and also demonstrate that, as I said, if there were any issues with that project, we would then be able to keep that resource and deploy it to the Northern Colorado pipeline. So we will be a special limited partner in the project, which gives the project the opportunity for property tax exemption and also Housing Catalyst to have some role in the actual project.
Thank you for explaining that. Yeah, I'm on the Middle Income Housing Authority Board, and we have a lot of special limited partnerships, so I'm somewhat familiar with that model, and just appreciate the fact that we have other partners in the community that can do this work, and that we're extending sort of our resources out as we can to be able to make those projects happen. So, and just for people in the public to understand that, making sure that these projects stay affordable, but that they're also, nice places for the people who live there to live in. So all the remodeling that you're talking about is really going to add to the quality of life of the folks who are living in these communities. And so thanks for explaining to how the relocation piece works, because that could be a little dicey for people living there. Is like, you got to live maybe in an apartment or an open, but ultimately they will get a really nicer home to walk into once you're done with the work. So thank you. That's all I have.
Commissioner Kafalis, do you have any questions or comments?
Yes, once again, I have both. I have an easy question for Joseph. For the record, would you be kind enough to spell your last name for our clerk and recorder, and perhaps what your title is with April Housing, sir?
Sure. Last name is Backlit, spelled B as in boy, ACLIT, and my full title is Vice President, Resyndication Project Manager.
Great, thank you. Kristen, thanks for explaining about SLP's special limited partners. I appreciate that very much. Good question. A couple of questions I have, mostly I think for the sake of the public, but could you explain, either of you, but probably you've been doing this, I'm sure you both have, in plain language, how private activity bonds actually help entities access or leverage other financing tools like 4% tax credits? How does that actually work?
Well, I can try.
I know you can.
How it actually works is fairly complicated, but the high level kind of explanation is that tax exempt private activity bonds are required when you utilize a 4% federal low income housing tax credit. You have to utilize a certain percentage, which now is a minimum of 25%. It used to be a minimum of 50%. Of your eligible costs in the project, which are determined by legal code, that must be funded by tax-exempt private activity bonds. And those are a limited resource around the state, local. So the state has private activity bond authority, the city, the county. There are various entities that can deploy them for their own priorities. Here in Larimer County and the city of Fort Collins, affordable housing is a top priority, and the majority of our bond allocation does go for that purpose. So there is a shortage of tax-exempt private activity bond in order to support the amount of affordable housing that is utilizing 4% federal tax credits. So that is, it is a critical piece of being able to do this work. It does lower the cost of financing. Using tax exempt bonds is less expensive than using taxable bonds when you are structuring your financing. So it is actually also a tool to help deliver housing, to bring down that cost of delivering housing.
Thank you. And just to take it a step further, so with regard to federal tax credits like the 4%, so investors, what's the role of investors who provide the upfront money so this work can be done? I think they're mostly financial institutions. Could you say a little bit about that? What's the incentive? How do they make money by investing in these and they get these credits?
Yes, so the federal tax credit program is an IRS program, and it is sort of the model of public-private partnership. It is bringing private money for public benefit, and the whole idea is that you can an investor can reduce their federal tax liability for every dollar that they invest into affordable housing. So that is why it's a fairly complicated and financially expensive structure, because you basically have to prove that you are delivering the appropriate amount of affordability so that that investor can then reduce their federal tax liability for the life of your partnership together. So the typical investor is someone with a large federal tax liability, which might be large scale banks, syndicated investment funds. We have typically JP Morgan Chase is a very large investor, Wells Fargo, US Bank. April Housing has partnerships with investors that are, totally different than Housing Catalyst because they operate at a national level. But those are the types of entities that are very interested in investing in the tax credit program.
Thank you. My last question, and then I'll just offer some words of gratitude for the presentations and the work, and that is perhaps more for the public also, but the reference to the methodology behind choosing country ranch apartments for rehab, and there was a reference that all 4 or 5 of these properties, these assets, are located in urban renewal authorities. If I got, what's the LURA? What is LURA?
So LURA is actually land use restriction.
Oh, okay, that ends.
Regulatory agreement.
Land use regulatory agreement, which is basically what requires the property to be affordable on the title commitment.
Deed restrictions and all of that. Well, thank you, because for some reason I thought that was local urban renewal authority,
Yes.
and I was my question was going to be around what does that have to do with contributing to the affordability of the homes. So thank you for that. And by way of appreciation, this is a great example of collaboration. We have a long history with Housing Catalyst, over $50 million, many years, all of those amazing projects. And I seem to recall back in the day, I think a number of us have been at this for a while. The goal was to develop these communities, village here, village there, in such a way that you could never really distinguish this was, quote, affordable housing, that it was high quality housing that compares more than favorably with market rate housing, rental, or certainly we're in the rental space, but then there's, of course, the home ownership space. So great collaboration, great partnership. I guess I didn't even know about Country Ranch Apartments. I know about Bull Run and some of the others. So you learn something every day. Thank you.
My turn. Thanks again for the presentation. I had actually Googled a little bit about April Housing before this meeting and just trying to learn a lot. So I want to just first off thank you for the partnership and collaboration, because it does take all hands trying to get this work done. And so it was great to have the presentation to kind of fill in some of the blanks. Commissioner Stevens had asked a couple of my questions. I know there's some members of the public that maybe still don't understand Housing Catalyst and these projects. So I'm going to ask some questions mostly because I know some folks are asking me about these questions. So these are about rentals. These are not the units that people can purchase like with other entities around who are trying to close that generational gap and have home ownership. These are for rental units for that 60% AMI for this project in particular. Is that correct?
That is correct. And the Housing Catalyst only delivers deed-restricted affordable rental
Rentals.
product.
So I just wanted to make sure that's clear because I just know that I'm going to get that question. So, and then when we talk about restoration and preservation, which is important because we know even, my home is about the same age and I know there's some things I need to fix. New windows, who knew how they're very, 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 very expensive. And that's was one of the questions about, will this make it more, air quality inside and efficiency and lower rates for heating and cooling. But I'm curious about when you do these, is there a life? Is it depend on? Because I see the brick outside, and I know that maybe doesn't have the painting and other things I saw in this project. Is there a time frame for some of these projects that these new ones you just saw that you plan ahead for preservation or restoration, so it's easier, as we know here we have a capital improvement fund, so we don't let things go till they break. It's more expensive when they all fall apart than to keep them maintained, just like taking care of our cars and things. Is there a time frame or a philosophy with that, with either April Housing or with the Housing Catalyst, and what does that look like as you're planning ahead for not even new units, as I saw that timeline, but I see that sprinkled in there all these other units that need to be maybe nurtured along.
So I'll respond on behalf of Housing Catalyst because we have a specific way that we look at it and how we will evaluate our partners' approach as well. And I'll let April Housing sort of respond as to how they plan to approach this project. But the way that we go into preservation is this is the opportunity when you have resources available and when the resident is out of the unit that you want to replace and bring everything up back to life. And our goal is for 20 years. We do not want to be coming back asking for resources, during the life of this tax credit partnership, and affordable rent doesn't allow you to be doing very large scale capital improvement by putting a bunch of money away in reserves, 5-10 years down the line. So our goal with preservation is to get in, bring everything up to code, all of that great energy efficiency work, and reset the clock in terms of resources for another 20 years.
Thank you. That makes sense. Go ahead. Thank you. Thank you, Joseph.
Sure. I would just echo Kristen's sentiments. We have the same mentality. In addition to needing to pass our own scrutiny and pass Housing Catalyst scrutiny, we have lenders and investors, and they also have the same mindset. If they're going to be investing or lending to us, they want, and this is our one chance to really do this, they want us to make sure we get it all.
Great. And my last question for today, you talked about how, what did you call it? The people helping navigators helping folks during this transition if they need to move.
Relocation consultant.
Is there a cost to maybe helping people move items like couches and stuff out? And if they're in apartments, is there a need for storage? I'm just thinking, just knowing I'm always thinking about if I ever have to move, it's going to be a nightmare. But yeah, I'm just wondering about that.
April Housing will cover all of that. We're going to hire a standalone moving company. Movers will come in, remove all the furniture out, help the tenants box up things if needed. Really, we'll provide them their own boxes, allow them to pack, and then grab everything, usually take it to some sort of offsite secure storage facility, and then return everything once the units are complete.
Wonderful. That's what I assumed was happening, but I just thought I'd ask because I'm sure someone's going to ask that question as well. Well, this, as Commissioner Stevens had asked, this is very unique, and I appreciate the time in answering our questions. I know that sometimes we just like to understand, it's easy just to sit here and, yes, we support this, but to understand the complexities and the benefits and all that is really important. And I do like the idea of the quality of life in it. And I look at those anemones and I'm like, wow, that's really nice pool. And I think about the young youth and stuff and kids and families, being able to utilize that. It's very welcoming and inviting, and just it seems like a beautiful place. So I'm looking forward to seeing what it looks like when it's all done. Lorinda, did you have any other comments or questions today?
I guess just back to the structure. So counties and municipalities are issued these private activity bond allocations, so not the funding, every year. So ours is roughly 7.2, Fort Collins and Loveland about 5.5, a little bit more than 5.5 million. It's a population-based structure that Department of Local Affairs helps to manage. If we don't allocate these bonds locally, they go back to the state for them to allocate. And so this is a really good thing for our community to be able to use these locally. I know these partners are really good at piecing together maybe Fort Collins and Larimer County bonds to do large projects. You've been great partners over the years, and it's always good to see the history and the plan going forward. So again, just the nuts and bolts of how this gets done and what it is. Counties and municipalities typically don't issue the bonds. We don't build the projects. We don't manage the projects, and we rely on partners to do that. So thank you for being good partners.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that, because again, this is complex for public to understand what's happening, and that you're right, we're not getting the funding, it's an allocation, and we are proud of the partnership and the results. So, and thank you, Joseph, for being here today. It's great to learn more about April Housing, and we appreciate the good work you're doing here in Housing Catalyst. Fantastic work and a long-term history and legacy, literally a legacy for lots of folks, and I appreciate that very much. I'm assuming, Aaliyah, we could just go ahead and move on to the motion. I don't think we have any further questions, so thank you for presenting and being up there. And so I'm going to ask Commissioner Stevens, unless there's other questions or concerns, to make that motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to approve the 2026 resolution authorizing assignment to the Housing Catalyst of a private activity bond allocation of Larimer County pursuant to the Colorado Private Activity Bond Ceiling Allocation Act.
Thank you for that motion. Any further deliberation?
Yes, actually.
Commissioner Kafalis.
Just a quick question. I think I know the answer, but I don't want to misspeak. And this preservation project contributes to our Proposition 123 goals. And if that is the case, please confirm that, and then maybe say a word or two about why that's important. What is Proposition 123?
Thank you, Commissioner. Great question. So as noted earlier this month, Larimer County has met our first cycle, Proposition 123 commitments. So we have met that first cycle of 113 preserved units in Larimer County, and we will be opting into the second cycle of Prop 123. And what that does is it allows for projects in Larimer County to apply for funds to continue to build new affordable housing and preserve affordable housing that we have. We'll opt into the next cycle by the end of this year. Since this project is going to kick off next year, we will be able to account a portion of those preserved units towards our Proposition Cycle 2 goals.
Cycle 2. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner, any further comments, or can we vote? Is that okay?
I believe, yes, we can vote.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
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 So that passed 3-0. Thank you so much for being here today, and thanks for hanging out for the other presentation. I hope you learned something too. It's kind of cool. And so we welcome you. You're welcome to, you don't have to stay for the rest of the meeting. We appreciate you being here for this length of time, and thanks again for your answering all of our questions. We'll move now to the community manager update. And Lorenda, what do you have to share?
Thank you, Commissioners. I did meet last week with Joyce Sullivan, who is the Executive Director of the United Way for Larimer County. They have some great projects in mind, and they talked a lot about the North Fort Collins work that they're doing with other agencies. And so it'll be interesting to see what comes from that. I know Commissioner Stevens is on that board, and we'll probably hear more presentations about what those plans are for that block, and it'll come back to us at some point. And then I was invited to participate in a CSU-hosted meeting with the members of the Colorado Department of Higher Education, the commissioners from that. CSU is looking to demonstrate our county partnerships, our community regional partnerships. So some folks from Fort Collins, from PRPA, the county, we're there to talk and interact with those commissioners because it's important to connect university to community through research, economic development, jobs, those kind of things. And so it was a great opportunity to really showcase that partnership to those very important folks who fund and support universities across the state. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thanks for sharing that. And as always, the exemplary job you do at representing the county and building partnerships and out in the public. I'm just very grateful. I know we're grateful for that. So thank you for that. We'll start with, now move on unless there's questions for Lorenda. With Commissioner activity reports, we'll start with Commissioner Kafalis.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I will yield my time as I was mostly recovering from my surgery, When people ask me sometimes what happened, I like to say, well, you should take a look at the other guy. But I'm mostly recovering, trying to get better.
And we're glad you're getting better, sir. So, Commissioner Stevens, would you like to share your activities?
Sure, Madam Chair. So on Wednesday, I was at a meeting for the SNAP cost share. So SNAP, for folks who might not know, is the food assistance program that's delivered by the federal government, and we implement that in our communities. Because of some of the recent legislation around HR 1 or the Big Beautiful Bill, we are likely to see more costs coming down to both the state and the county because of error rates and also just administrative burden being shifted to the states instead of the federal government. So we are trying to figure out how to operate in that kind of new world where we are responsible for more of the administrative costs. And, you know, a lot of the costs are really just trying to make sure that people are signed up correctly to receive these benefits. So families in our community, tens of thousands of residents in our community can receive food assistance, which is very important. It's not only important for those residents, but it's important for our local economy, our grocery stores, and such to be able to have that those dollars coming into our community. So we are still working with the state on what the cost shares will look like for SNAP benefits. That's an ongoing conversation. The state does have some funds, but it with ongoing costs could, you know, reduce their the amount that they have, and so really trying to figure this out to make sure that it's fair and that counties can still deliver these services and not be overly burdened. So to be continued on that. On Friday, I attended the Regional Air Quality Commission meeting. We had a report on the health impacts of ground level ozone. Just so folks know that, I mean, the reason that we're working on ground level ozone is because any increases in ground level ozone increase the rates of morbidity and mortality, increase ER visits, increase people not being able to attend work or school because of asthma. And this group from CSU was estimated that we lose hundreds of millions of dollars, if not close to $1 billion, on these high ozone days because of the health impacts. So really important for us to lower those ozone levels in our community to make sure that people are staying healthy, that they can go outside, that they can work outside, that they can get to work and school and not end up in the emergency room. So, and then just we also looked at our blueprint, which has control strategies for reducing ozone. Unfortunately, even with the suggested strategies, we will still not bring our ozone into attainment. So we need to keep looking at control strategies. We need to look at the efficacy of these control strategies and the reasonableness of, you know, financially what kind of burden that would place on our community. But we already know that there is a health impact. So there is already a burden on our community. Anyway, so really trying to wrestle kind of with how we control ground level ozone, knowing that there are significant impacts to people if those numbers remain high. And then on Saturday, I got to do something really fun, which was read stories to little ones at the farmers market. And I appreciate there were, even though it was very, very hot, there were a lot of people at the farmers market. Produce is coming in like gangbusters, so I encourage people to visit the farmers market. And finally, on Sunday, I attended the COCO brand release party, which COCO is the Colorado Connector, the new Front Range passenger rail train that will be coming in the next few years, hopefully, to connect Fort Collins to Denver via Boulder County. And it was really fun to kind of mingle and talk to people who are really excited about the train. There was a lot of merchandise. There was, you know, festivities. The governor was there. There were a lot of people in attendance that are really big supporters of the train and want to see this happen. And so that was great to see the branding of our new train, which is familiarly called COCO. And that is it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. So I'll start back with last week as I met with the rodeo board as we're getting ready for the fair and rodeo, and just an outstanding work on their part. They've been so efficient that our meetings are really short and getting done very quickly, and I want to just give out a shout to them. I think it will be an outstanding and wonderful fair and rodeo this year, and we have a couple more meetings before we have our first rodeo on the night of August 2nd, so I hope you'll go online and try to get some tickets before they're sold out. We anticipate the first 2 nights might be selling out, so please, hopefully the third night too, so please get online and join us for the fair and rodeo. So the next thing I'd like to share is last week I'm on the State Emergency Medical Trauma Advisory Committee, and we had our quarterly meeting along with some of the subcommittees I'm on. I'm on the Public Policy and Finance meeting, which I'm still looking at some of the ramifications from potential initiative 175 and the changes and decreases of HUTF funds that Commissioner Stevens is very familiar with, which is highway use tax, and that goes to help fund a lot of the rural and regional emergency responses for the ambulances, emergency services, and those folks doing those work, and also is greatly impacting, and there's a lot of funding that is decreased in 6 to 7 digits of money that is impacting the ability to provide private and needed mental health support for those first responders. And it's enough that it's concerning. These are folks who are out in rural communities with long response times, and a lot of sometimes are folks lifelines to get to emergency care into hospitals, since rural health care and hospitals are shrinking and closing down. And so I just wanted to kind of bring that to everyone's attention, that that's something we should all be thinking about, as some of those changes are really having a ripple effect throughout the community. And so that was a lot of the calls that day. We did have a discussion and call with Congressman Neguse with other counties, and it was a great conversation to discuss kind of some of the things that is happening at the federal level, and how he's trying to work on a bunch of wildfire and forestry bills in partnership with Congresswoman Brittany Pedersen. So looking forward to those bills dropping and getting to learn more. And I'm personally, as a commissioner, going to get behind those big time. We had I wanted to talk about our Planning Commission and Board of County Commissioners work session with our Planning Commission. I just wanted to thank them for their service and their continued work and giving their times and talents, because we are going over some big topics like transfer of development rights, and that's a big project. We had we had a grant for, and so staff has been working with them and consultants and with our Planning Commission and us, and so it was a really important and robust conversation, and we were here late, and I just wanted to thank staff and the Planning Commission for their time and their commitment, because it is a lot of talk for those folks, and our Planning Commission don't get paid, and I wanted to thank staff for supporting them. Then we had our next SEMTAC meeting with the State of Emergency Medical Trauma Advisory Council meeting, and we elected a new chair, Marcy Dowds, out of I think it's in the mountains areas, and she has been involved for a long time, and so that's exciting to have. I think she's the first ever woman chair of that committee in the state's history, so I wanted to make note of that. We had our CCAT Interim Issues and Policy Committee meeting. Certainly a lot is happening, and we submitted a lot of our legislative ideas and other things last week. I got those submitted, and I wanted to just say that there's a lot happening as we're talking and preparing already for the 2027 legislative season and session, and so I'm anxious to see how those all come together, and how we keep working together to make good policy that's important for counties. And then there was a chance, there is a bill that's an effort through the Fire Commission, and a certain individual on the Fire Commission and commissioner from Clear Creek is pushing forest improvement districts, which has been in state statute for a long time, but no one's really used it. And they're making changes to make it easier and faster for watersheds and other entities to form forest improvement districts, to go across jurisdictional boundaries that can become another special district, and tax folks to work on forest health and wildfire mitigation for fire, for watersheds and water users. And so this would have some impacts, I think, on counties and some questions that I have. And so Cece had a meeting about that and giving some feedback, which is due today, which I will be adding my individual comments on that. But it is I think for some counties, a good idea for smaller counties who have lacks of resources. But for some of us that have been working on things, it could be more another taxing entity when we have over 250 of those in our county already. So just wanted to share that. And then on Friday, we had our Forest Health Council legislative meeting. We continue to wrangle with what we can do. We don't have interim committees to present to the wildfire interim committee with the state legislature. So we're working on a couple of items that we approved for our 2027 legislative priorities that we did back in April. And we're still working on prioritization and how we're all trying to collaborate. So we're all not working in silos and maybe duplicating services and efforts and applying for grants. And we're looking at transportation's issues. Commissioner Stevens, to bring your attention on weight loads on certain trucks coming on county roads and off of Forest Service lands, and we're looking to maybe help solve some of those challenges and what we can do to kind of help get the transportation costs for getting woody biomass off the landscape and into appropriate places. So, and then I did end up camping on the Larimer County, Boulder County line, which was really great. I want to just bring everyone's attention how much the camp hosts, I was basically camping on the eastern boundary of Rocky National Park and hiked about 13 miles, did myself in the heat of the day. But I wanted to just share the alarming feedback from campground hosts and those who are local of how many folks who are not following fire bans and restrictions and having campfires. And so it was very alarming to me to hear of the daily occurrence of having to monitor that. And I wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. And I ask everyone in the community and our public to understand they're in place for a reason. We have to look at what's happening at Aspen Acres and now up in Steamboat to understand we're in extreme fire danger. And I know you all want to come and have maybe a little campfire, but right now it's not worth it for a lot of folks. It's putting extreme danger and putting people lives and property in danger and putting our first responders in great jeopardy, as we know, as we're still, we're mourning, I think 4 now deaths related to wildfires this year. And I'm just asking you all to understand and please consider that as we work our way through the rest of this season. So that's all I have for today. We have no other items on our regular agenda, but we are going into executive session regarding some legal matters. And so I will ask, and I don't believe we're coming back as it is a decision made. So we're going to go into executive session and go offline. We will not be returning to a public announcement for this meeting. We'll be adjourning this portion of our meeting and going into executive session, and we will not be returning onto the camera online. So thank you for joining us today. We are very glad that we hope you learned a lot of new things like I did today, and we thank you for joining us. And Commissioner Kafalis, would you please read that motion to take us into executive session? Thank you.
Yes, Madam Chair. I move the Board of County Commissioners move into executive session pursuant to the Colorado Revised Statutes 24-6-4024B, conferences with an attorney for the purpose of receiving legal advice regarding the Taft Tail Road Expansion Project condemnation cases, 2025 CV 30459, 30462, and 30463, update on settlement.
Thank you, sir, for that motion. Any further questions? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all. We're moving to executive session. Have a great day.